From Tumwater, Washington, going out to the 5 counties and beyond. No Shhh, it's the TRL Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Annalisa, and we are your hosts for the library podcast that talks about more than just books. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Annalisa.
How are you?
I'm carrying on, which is sometimes all you can ask.
You're here.
I'm here.
I like that about you.
How are you?
I'm good. I think I might as well introduce our topic for today, what we're going to be talking about, and then we can introduce our guests who can explain it better than we can. But today's topic is
Anywhere Library. Yeah.
So, without further ado,
we have our second board member ever on the podcast, Toni Gwin.
Yay!
Board member for Pacific County, and Brenda McGuigan, outreach coordinator for the entire district. That's a big job.
Definitely.
is that your title? It doesn't have Anywhere Library in the title?
No, it's outreach coordinator. So since Anywhere is a big part of outreach in the library district.
Yeah, it used to be Anywhere coordinator there, wasn't
Yes.
it? Yeah, so you started with Anywhere coordinator, and then that job became so big that they were like, you know what? Let's promote her to be in charge of all outreach, basically. So now you're consolidating your power and expanding it at the same time. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, two years ago was when I started as Anywhere coordinator. So,
And Toni, I gotta say about Pacific County, easily one of the top 5 counties in the district. I think it's my favorite actually, and I'm not a resident there, but
I will quiz you later about pronouncing things.
You know what? You can go for it. I feel like I would do all right, actually.
I know, but see,
maybe I'm overestimating.
I need a
my
map
abilities.
because I have to point to something and say, "How do you say this?"
Yeah,
I can't just say, "How do you say this?" And
how do you say Ocean Park? I
No.
feel like I would get that one right.
Yes.
My wonderful in-laws have a house out in Long Beach, and so they are kind enough to let us go out there
Nice.
multiple times per year. And so shout out Long Beach, Washington, one of my favorite places to go. Home of Dylan's Cottage Bakery. You're a fan of the Cottage Bakery
Yes.
out there. So
Free advertising.
yeah, I know. I feel like I have to promote the places that I love. That's what you do.
Well,
And that's why I'm here to talk about Anywhere Libraries.
Bingo. Great. A wonderful segue.
uh-huh. Now, which one of you wants to tackle explaining Anywhere Library?
You go ahead.
all right. So Anywhere Library is the mobile services division for Timberland Library. So think Bookmobile plus. So we have 5 Ford Transit vans that serve in 5 different hubs at all of our counties in Timberland, so that we are able to provide services with the bookmobiles, the Anywhere Library vans at community locations.
I love how you
Wait,
said that.
I have to-
Toni, you're
Bookmobile
shaking
Plus.
your head here.
I have to get in here because as a trustee, when I first heard about these, I'm a lover of bookmobiles. And when I looked at the Anywhere Libraries, I said, this is not what this is. So I spent the summer riding along because it was Take Your Trustee to Work Day. I was the only one that showed up, but that's okay.
No pressure.
No pressure.
This, of course.
But I had a great time, and they are not like the bookmobiles of my childhood. They're more like a pop-up tent or inside a grange or inside some church building or someplace that people can come in and just pop under the tent and get library services. So to me, it was unlike when the blue bookmobile would stop and the door would open and you would walk in, and the driver was usually taking a cigarette break out behind the bookmobile.
The days of yore, the good old days.
Old days,
When
yes.
you can take a smoke break behind
Right,
the bookmobile.
and Mrs. Casey would move the chair around so that my 6-year-old self could sit on the bookmobile seat and talk to her. This is much more encompassing and much grander and more tailored, I think, than any bookmobile could possibly be.
Yeah, I like how you said Bookmobile Plus, because I think a lot of people think, of mobile services, and they think, Bookmobile is kind of like the image that you have in your head of what that is. And of course, these aren't like bookmobiles in the traditional sense, as you were just saying. It's, you can do it outside, you can do it inside. You're like bringing a small library into a location.
Toni, you mentioned your own personal experience with the bookmobile. I hear those stories all the time. Yeah. I think it'd be good to kind of talk about. So for me, a bookmobile was I'm a millennial. When I heard that term, it was new to me. I wasn't familiar with mobile services, but when you talk to people of a certain generation, they have such wonderful memories of the TRL specifically. So I want to talk about kind of where this started within TRL, but these wonderful nostalgic memories of the bookmobile coming. And so I think sometimes there's attitudes of like, are we going backwards here? Like we're going back to bookmobiles. And then there's also these, happy feelings about it of like the bookmobiles are back. But obviously we're going to talk about why they're different today, how it's different from the bookmobile with the guy smoking behind the back.
The bookmobiles of yore, yeah.
So I'm curious if anyone here can speak to kind of how did we get from what's the history of TRL and bookmobiles? I know I've seen pictures of like 6 different iterations of the TRL bookmobile.
I know that at the time that Timberland was founded in 1968, the amalgam of different independent library entities that were providing service at that time were using bookmobiles in East Lewis County and Grays Harbor County. And so there were bookmobiles operating since the beginning of Timberland, basically.
Yeah. So I am one of those kids that grew up. My library was the bookmobile after 1968. I started riding along with my grandmother, campaigning to vote for the library districts, and then we got a bookmobile. And I remember as a country kid, because I lived by Hump Tulips in Axford Prairie, which is one of those suburbs of the area. And the bookmobile would come once a month, and it was the most exciting day ever was to have a bookmobile there. And I got teased by the town kids where I went to school because we didn't have a brick and mortar library, and they thought that the bookmobile was less than. But had it not been for the librarian on the bookmobile, I would not be a reader and I would not be here today. So I see that same magic that a bookmobile brought to rural communities in Anywhere libraries when I rode with them this summer. So I went from being somebody who was a real skeptic about Anywhere libraries to a supporter on the board after my adventures with them.
That's awesome to hear.
I want to hear what made you a skeptic.
Because I had this vision of somebody having to load and unload the bookmobile, and it's not that way. Yes, it is a very physical job, but I saw how every stop is tailored to that stop. I watched a librarian driving around and saying like, well, everyone's gardening, so I'm going to bring gardening books. And it wasn't like just here's the library. It's more like here's services that are tailored to your area. I watched high school students getting running starts on the books that they were going to be reading for English because she had checked the reading list and was asking people what they were doing. I saw craft projects that were going on, in different areas and things. That was bigger than my bookmobile, and I got very excited.
So why did bookmobiles go away, and why have they made a resurgence?
I mean, that's a really good question. I feel like it's different from library district to library district. And Brenda, I know you are in touch with folks who work in outreach and with bookmobiles and mobile services at library systems across the state. How many systems are doing this kind of thing? Because we're not the only mobile services.
Almost every library system has some version of outreach bookmobile, and a lot of them have depended on them for years. The large old style ones that you think of, the bus that would go and park for a day at a location, or even
day.
Yeah.
Wow.
or part of a day, I guess, versus some of the ones we had at Timberland were even kind of stationary in locations to serve rural communities. And a lot are moving now towards these smaller vehicles, which was one thing when we were kind of redesigning this bookmobile mobile services 2 years ago, looking at the smaller vehicles so we could have them in each county instead of one large vehicle. So they have shorter routes. They're able to get to know their community better. And then the staff, the Anywhere staff, one person is located in each county to really, as you met, driving along with Emily and in Grace Harbor or in Pacific. So
that's an interesting piece of trivia about this whole history of mobile services at TRL, because we originally started talking about bringing back some version of mobile services pre-pandemic.
We did.
Like 2018 and 19-ish. I remember this conversation happening, and we were going to pursue the larger vehicles, at least one, possibly more than one at one point. My memory is a little fuzzy on this, but we were looking at a larger bookmobile style service, and then the pandemic happened, and you had all the supply chain issues, and basically the vendor that was going to put this together for us was like, it's going to take years to actually deliver this to you, and so that we were like, you know what, back to the drawing board, and that our current Anywhere service came out of that discussion, which is actually kind of a positive because of the reasons that you described.
yeah, the service can be much more flexible with the smaller vehicles. They're easier to drive. You can go to more places. You can park places where you couldn't park a large van.
You do have to set up either inside a building or in a tent or in the community center or the nursing home. But I think that's part of the charm of it, because for people who wouldn't get out of their little comfort zone, it's an easy area to be accessing of a library.
So what are they accessing at these stops other than books?
So we bring Wi-Fi. We have printing will be available on our newest vehicles. That we have one in Thurston County, and the other 4 will be on the road in probably December and January. So, and those will have all the features. They have built-in shelving and removable carts that can, go into the location, including a tech cart with the laptop printer Wi-Fi. We bring Library of Things, information about our online services, things like My TRL, mail-out services, and we also have a lot of programming at the stops, which include activities for kids, adults, and story times as well.
I got to see all the summer library programming happening because I was there during the summer. But I also was amazed because people who were between homes were there and got service help. This is how you sign up, and here's the forms and things, which I was pretty stunned that they would have and be ready to go with.
Well, each of these stops is, you had mentioned that there are 5 vehicles, one for each county, and they're all being run by librarians or maybe not librarians, are
Like specialists.
They're by Anywhere library specialists who are doing what library staff do, which is connecting patrons and community members to information, to access, to, things that they need. So it's more than just, I said, what services are you providing? And, I'm thinking, books and printing and things like that. But really, it's like that connection. There's someone there that's there to help you and find what it is the information that you're needing. What's the thing you need in library staff? That's what they do.
And spark your interest and get you to come back, because you now have somebody who's going to talk to you about the books that you're reading, or how did that geranium grow, or did the pig die?
Yeah, and as our services grow and the specialists and librarians get to know the communities, we have a community partner at each location that we work with to plan the stop, who provides the location, whether it's a food bank, a school, a daycare, or child care program, community lunch programs, after school programs. So they work with those partners, and we see services developing over time. So we might start with the checkout, and then they might ask about tech help, or we start doing programming, or they are more interested in the online services. So the patrons, as they get to know the staff. So that's really wonderful to watch.
So for me, it was really lovely to see, for those people who are not going to travel to a brick and mortar library or don't have the time, to be able to have a library that's just going to pop up while you're on the way to, something that you're going to do anyway. It was really nice to see. And I heard from a lot of people who told me that, yeah, they may drive to the city and they'll drive by the library, but by the time they get groceries and do everything else they're going to do, they don't have time to go to the library. So the fact that the library comes to them is exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a thought experiment that I like to talk to people about, which is like if you look at Timberland, we have 29 branches right now, 29 physical locations. If you made all those disappear and then you gave a team of people the task of saying, you have the same amount of money we have now, how do you provide library service to these 5 counties that we serve, in the most efficient way? Like if you did that, it wouldn't necessarily look anything like what we currently have, because Timberland as it exists now is the product of decades of different people making decisions about where to place a physical building, and economics are different, demographics are different, and so we have these pockets throughout the district that are just not well served by a physical space. And so anywhere is our flexible way of getting out there and bringing the library to people who are nowhere near a physical branch for whom the hours wouldn't work. And like even in a county like Thurston County that has some big branches, you're not necessarily serving every pocket of that county with the libraries that exist. And so anywhere is like an essential piece of getting out there and bringing the library and all it encompasses to communities that we're not well serving. So I think it's great, obviously.
Yeah, well, how do you choose stops? That's the next question, is how do you decide where Anywhere Library is going to go? I know that you are very involved in that.
Yeah, definitely. We look at our service priorities and reaching people who are not using our library or who have barriers to getting there. Mm-hmm. And you think of barrier just being a remote location. That's one of them, but it's not the only thing. We do have a lot of stops that are in town at senior centers or the schools where transportation, or as you mentioned, someone will come into town but choose to do the one thing they have to do, and maybe the library is not part of the schedule. So our senior stops we get a lot of feedback that, hey, I wouldn't be using the library if you weren't coming here. Wow. And helping people with technology as well, having, you're there and get to know people, and then they start asking you the extra questions. And then with our daycares and schools, families are busy, right? Then the parents are working, and it's great to reach the kids and families at those locations who may not have time to make it to the library after a long day. So, and at a lot of our Head Starts and other daycare locations, they have a little checkout. They all line up, pick their books off of the cart, and the teacher.
Adorable.
Yep.
It is.
And then they put their book from last time in the return bin, and they get very excited, and they all call out the Anywhere librarian's name. They get to know them. So it's really great to see that.
Are you talking about certain stops like at Head Starts and schools? And I think this is a kind of an important thing about Anywhere Library, which is that if you look at our events calendar, you can see many Anywhere Library stops. But that's not even all of the stops that we do, because we do both public stops and what I think you have referred to as like agency stops that are not open to the public but serve Head Starts and things of that nature.
Yes, we do almost, I would say about 50% of our stops are agency stops. So you would not see them on our calendar because they're at a school or a location where it wouldn't be open to the public, like at a Head Start or an after-school program. And those are some of our most popular stops because the kids are all there. The teachers are expecting us. We help the teachers with what we call, grab bags or themed bags with curriculum topics. So they can, get a bag of 15 books and turn in their one from the last month to support whatever topic they're working on. And that was a big change with how we rolled out this service starting, 2 years ago, is to really look at that. Hey, they don't all have to be open to the public because this is where we're going to reach people, where they're at their community locations.
The point
like
is
school.
To go where people are, and that's where people are.
So I am fascinated at the organization that it takes, because when you think about a library is just going to pop up in my neighborhood, but having witnessed that, how much time and thought, and where did you get all the ideas for all the innovative ways that you display books and the containers that you put books out in? And it's not just a table with a bunch of books. It fascinates me.
Oh, yeah. For our modified service, which is the service you probably saw, the specialist, we looked at ways we could, display things on a table when we bring them in our courier totes. So just these totes that we bring in on a dolly, and then I think everyone found a little different way to display things with traditional library display holders and fun boxes that are lightweight and portable.
Yeah, they broke down. I was really excited.
So that everything has to, you have to think about you're picking everything up and
The
taking
logistics,
it.
yeah.
It's a huge piece that you don't want the van to be too heavy. You can't bring everything.
The van will fall over.
Yep. And heavy on the bottom, light on the top makes a big difference.
I learned that.
And you'll see the new vans are really great with the carts roll off instead of the totes, and we just bring the cart for checkout that's sitting on, so it's a lot easier that way. And the tech, they have a light in the back and an awning and a little takeout window if we're ever doing service outside.
And I know this answer, but I bet you could tell everybody that if they had a wonderful spot that they thought they needed to have an anywhere library, that you're still taking suggestions.
Yes, definitely. We have a form on the website you can fill out on the Anywhere Library page to request a stop. And we mostly do what we call recurring stops, so the ones that are happening every month. But we do special events as well.
And it's winter now. You're not going to be going to parades and things like that, because I saw my Everywhere Library at several community festivals.
Are there winter parades? Do we do a lot of winter
There
parades?
are winter
There's the
parades.
lighted tractor parade in
We
Louisiana.
occasionally do parades, even in the winter.
It's hard at night to check out books, I think.
I'm not arguing that.
And one thing too, we work, really closely with the branch library staff, which is a big part of outreach as well. The staff at our libraries all do outreach, so we coordinate and cooperate with them so that we're in communication about areas in their communities that they have a relationship with, and we work closely if we go to stops together, or they may cover something and we may do something else. So
I am going to know that we have really reached the pinnacle when we start doing stops at summer camps for kids and adults. Yeah,
we
summer
do them
camp
at
day.
summer
There's
camps.
a suggestion right there from the top.
No, I'm not the top. I'm just I just have a little power, but
Summer
I'm
camps
friendly.
are some of our best stops, and we did a lot of performers at different locations that weren't libraries at our Anywhere locations. And summer programs work really well because a lot of our stops are school year stops, right? So they work on a 8 or 9 month schedule, and then we have openings in the summer to do something different. So,
Well, Toni, being a board member that's representing Pacific County, how do you feel about the impact and the importance of Anywhere Library specifically in Pacific County?
I think it's been really lovely to see areas like North River, which is on the line between Grace Harbor and Pacific, but since I visited, it's mine now. I don't care. Seeing what great community turnout was there, and people were thrilled about having a library. Watching them support the Shoalwater Library in Tokeland, really great. Seeing them on the peninsula. We have libraries that kind of fluctuate right now with the craziness going on with losing South Bend, as we try to figure out if we can get the building working out in things. It's nice to have an Anywhere library that at least pops up, because I'm keenly aware that there's a group of people that the only library they use is the South Bend Library, and having it close so we can get rid of mold and asbestos and all kinds of things. It's nice that there's an Anywhere library to bridge the gap. And it wasn't something that we had to go out and think about. It wasn't like, well, do you think we can just throw some books in a van? It was like, no, we're ready to go.
Yeah, you already have the service.
Yeah.
It's ready
We
and
got a
waiting to fill
person,
that
we'll
gap.
just
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go. So they're in my old office that I retired from, which gives me a big kick out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, Pacific County is, I think, a perfect use case for anywhere library because it's so spread out. You don't have the same population center that you do in, Grays Harbor or any of the other four
Grays
counties.
Harbor on the edges really can use those
Yeah, true.
anywhere
I mean,
libraries
you got Aberdeen,
too.
but other than that, it's also pretty spread out.
When you
right.
start going north to where I grew up, anywhere libraries are going to make a great impact. And I think we're going to make readers, which is what's, I think, important.
Yeah, and we hear a lot of stories from our patrons that one patron at a Mason County stop was talking about how it reignited reading in their family at night.
Yeah.
By having to, they went to the stop regularly and then they, started their their routine of reading at night with their kids.
I was talking to somebody in the Belfair parking lot of the library, and they had started coming to Belfair because of the Anywhere Library. I have no idea what it was in Mason County, but they had been going to the Anywhere Library, so then they made the trip to come to that library. And I was like, great, that's a good thing.
Yes, it's doing
Yeah,
outreach at the same time.
exactly. And learning that, people don't always know that we are the system of 29 libraries, and you get the card and you can use it at anywhere online or at any of those the
we
29
definitely see
buildings.
that in the physical branches where people don't realize that it's everything in this library and 28 others. I think that's maybe a little easier to explain on an Anywhere van. It's like, it's not just the books on this van. You've got everything else in the system.
That's a hard thing for people to get their hands around, though, is because if you are used to a brick and mortar library, you assume that the only books that you have are on your shelf.
Right.
And if you don't think ahead, or if you are living without internet and don't, visit with your librarian who says, I can get those for you, you do kind of think that the only books you've got access to are what you see. Timberland is so much more than what you can see, which is, I think, why I like the Anywhere Library, because it's like, it's a library, but you never know where it's going to be. And one guy in Bay Center just cracked me up because he said, I love coming here because I don't have to take my boots off to go inside. And I went, I don't think we would make you take your boots off.
Actually, we'd rather you leave them on.
It's like,
Pretty sure we required that.
And I thought,
you take your boots off and come in the library, probably someone's going to talk to you about that.
But that's a good thing. It's good that we've got a library that's like, just come on under the tent. It'll be fine.
Whatever makes you feel welcome.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, I love the idea that we're making new, like, warm and fuzzy memories with a new Anywhere. Do you have favorite warm, fuzzy memories or stories from the past? It's been like a year and a half. I mean, it's been about a year and a half since we started.
So our first stop started at the Senior Center in Rainier in June of 2023, and a Senior Center in Yelm.
Yep.
So all of the Anywhere specialists have mentioned when they start going to a stop and return, people know them by name, and they really, whether it's kids or teens or I think it was Emily mentioned there was a senior with a memory issue who remembered her, and because of her smile. So as she came back into one of the sites, there's a young patron in Mason County who told Joe that he wants to become a librarian, so he can do the same thing.
Adorable and inspiring.
Yep.
You love that. It's like real small town library feel.
Looks like maybe you have more. Proceed if you have more.
Oh gosh. And we just hear a lot of people remembering bookmobile service in rural communities where they didn't have anything else.
Yeah, it was like...
And in their childhood, and how meaningful that was.
And I want to go back to all those town kids that teased me and say, look at where it got me.
On the podcast, the TRL podcast.
I hope they're listening right
of my
now.
Career.
Both of them probably are.
And the other big surprise is, people come in thinking they're going to get a Lucky Day popular book. And then we share another story about something like mail out service or Libby, our online collection, or that they can use the Dolly Parton Imagination Library or something, a different service. And then they get really excited that we have access to these other things as well that they never knew about.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of crossover between like mail out service folks and people who utilize Anywhere Library. So that's probably a great thing to talk about.
And just to clarify, if anybody needs to know this, our mail out services, you can literally get items mailed to you. Not everything, not like, I don't think our library of things, but books.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to send you a metal detector.
Or ukulele or something. The postage is a little higher on the ukulele.
Just as we're referencing this, I just thought I should say that is a service that we offer, and obviously would be a good fit for folks who maybe, if one of their barriers between library services and them is distance. But Anywhere Library was also giving out laptops.
Yes.
What is?
Oh, yes.
Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
This was a great program through, it started, the Thurston County Chamber approached me about doing this at our stops, and it was a gift from the Nisqually tribe to promote digital literacy in the community. So I think in 2023, we received 30 laptops. And then the next year we got an additional, I think it was 80 laptops and tablets. So we gave them out. We did drawings and sometimes to our agency partners at various stops. It started in Thurston County, but it expanded so that we could make them available in all of our counties. So we've given them out at many of our stops. And really it's, it did exactly what they were the Nisqually tribe was hoping to do. It's really brought digital products into the hands of people who did not have them. And so good news, I just talked to the Thurston County Chamber, and the Nisqually tribe has donated an additional 60 tablets that have Wi-Fi service paid through the end of June of next year. So they will be connected. So it will really help folks who not only need the device, but need the connection. And then we'll have an additional 20 hotspots that we can give out as well.
Very
So we're just getting those, which is really awesome.
That is lovely. Yes. Good for them.
I know.
Yeah.
So Brenda, very important question. Who came up with the name Anywhere Library?
I knew this was going to come up.
It's my legacy.
I knew this was going to come up.
There was a contest, I believe, where they asked staff for interesting names. I don't even remember what the other ones were.
Me neither, because it doesn't matter.
And it probably came from my COVID-related book group called the Anywhere Book Club.
Okay, so she just took the credit back.
You know what? It's fine.
Just kidding.
I'm impressed.
I will share the credit for that, because actually you did comment something very close to it, and I just tweaked it a little bit, and then get the credit.
But yeah, Chris came up with the idea, and was it voted on, or did they choose? I can't even remember.
You know what? The important part is that I get the credit for the name. The name, not the idea of the service, by the way. So just the name is my legacy.
And that was before I started, the couple years before they had rolled out a couple stops in Lewis County, and the service stopped temporarily while
that was probably like 2019 or so when it actually got that name. But the name does confuse people too, because if you're selecting where you want your whole to be picked up and you don't care, they're like, oh, I'll pick Anywhere Library. I'll go to any library. So we do have, it's not all warm and fuzzy.
We've actually
I heard
had
that
an
explained quite often.
Yes,
but
so.
I understand it now. So
Well,
good.
I think it's I almost brought this up earlier and almost gave you that segue of like, guess who came up with that name? Because I think it does a good job of separating itself from kind of the old, like not using the word like mobile in it. It makes you kind of separate from the busmobile and that type of thing, because as Toni, busmobile, did I say that?
Yes.
I stand by it. But
Bus.
because what you were saying is it's not, it's
different.
so different. It is like this kind of pop up, it's like this Anywhere Library. So I think it works.
And that while people refer to it as the bookmobile when it comes, it's more than books, right?
They didn't.
Tony's not allowing it.
No, they didn't in my
Did
visits.
they call it Anywhere?
They
Awesome.
did. Yeah, they called it the library is here, and I went perfect.
Actually, that's great.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and our partners know Anywhere Library, so they're definitely using that, and that's great to hear.
Yeah, I sometimes think that we're teaching people a new vocabulary. It's called the library vocabulary, and Anywhere Library is like high on the list.
Yeah, and we get calls from other organizations, as the Chamber of Commerce approached us about this laptop program. ESD 113 had a program with math backpacks, which we have in the system. So they funded a series of backpacks that are just for anywhere libraries to work, since we work with so many child care centers. So that's a nice new program we have.
I'm starting to see, like, we have the physical libraries and then we have the anywhere libraries. And in my thought process, it's like making sure that everybody has in fair and equitable amount of things in it. So it's not like the anywhere libraries are getting the leftovers.
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, the point of TRL as a library system is not to provide a physical library per se. That's one way of providing library service, but so is anywhere, for example. So our founding purpose is to provide library service, and this is just like one other avenue to do that.
Exactly.
And what I've noticed is that there's quite a number of people who are looking for the social outlet of having a library, of having someone to talk to. And I see them getting that with an anywhere library. So I'm very delighted.
In a lot of the places we go, we choose times where there might be a gathering so that folks are there, whether it's a special event at a senior center, and then they'll come over and have that additional
I'm thinking there's going to be some
interaction as
holiday things that are going to be pretty fun with anywhere libraries that we'll never know about. You'll have to be on the list to find out, or in the neighborhood.
The VIP list.
Yeah.
Was there anything you're excited about as Anywhere Library just continues to grow, and like, is there anything that excites you about Anywhere Library that is yet to come, or you see growing or getting even better?
Well, as we get our new vehicles in, since we just have one that's been turned into a bookmobile, that's going to be really great in terms of, a little less physical work for the staff so they can focus on, the time at the stop. And as we are filling out our schedule, so that, the stops are full for the month, just adding those services at the sites, whether it's additional programming. We upped our programming for summer library program so that we're able to bring more performers out to different locations, which was really popular last year to have that.
Wow.
So I just think, and we have another staff person starting next month.
I know, that's exciting.
So that we can
cool.
expand our Thurston County service, and occasionally we need a second person at a stop, so that allows us to have that person that could do tech help or do a program while the other person, works with the collection and other questions. So.
And I also love, when I was writing with Emily, she has a little secret map file so that in case a road is covered with flood, she knows how to get around it, which I just loved. I mean, that's dedication.
Yeah,
I can still get there.
The things you don't think about in an office all day.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you'll feel about this question, but we've talked about how physically challenging it can be to do this work. You've also shared some things that sound kind of rewarding about the process of being in this job. Do you feel like what do you feel like the pull is to want to work for an anywhere library? Like, drive the van, do the stop. Like, what do you think that pull is, and do you think it is rewarding work?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, you get to be out in the community all day long. The specialists in the counties work directly with the community partners. They really are engaged with the schools and different locations that they work with. So I think that's huge. And the reward of having, those, what would be like a constant programming in a branch, but out on the road.
I think it's mentally more challenging to be in an anywhere library than in the brick and mortar libraries. And I say that as somebody who's sat in brick and mortar libraries and listened and, heard what's going on. And it's repetitive and it's predictable. You go to an anywhere library and it's somebody who's coming in who wants to talk to you about the Bronte sisters. And then you're turning around and talking about a Star Wars epic thing. And then you're helping somebody with their gardening and their sourdough. And I mean, when you get up in the morning, you don't get up and think, well, today I'm going to have all of these things come at me in 15 minutes or less. And you're going to be able to turn around and to do that. So I think for the people who love to be challenged, this is it. But physically, it is an incredibly hard job because it is a physical job. But everybody is supportive in the area. When you drive up, people are like, yes, you're here, and happy to see you.
Yeah, and a little bit of different things. So, right, you get to drive the van, you get to unload the van, and be
You
at
get
the
to chase
stop.
the dogs off. That was kind of fun.
And work with the partners and plan ahead. So, yeah, a lot of different, pieces.
Yeah, I love driving down the road and Emily puts the brakes on and goes, that'd be a good stop. And I'm like, where? What? It was good.
We also haven't clarified that Emily is because we've referenced her several times.
Yes.
Is the Anywhere Library Specialist for
She
Pacific
is,
County.
she is the reason I'm enthusiastic, because she loaded me in a van and took me away around with her, and it was great.
Maybe we need to have her on and get her side of the story of having you along with her.
Oh, I'm going to have to pay.
Yeah.
You've said a lot of great things about her. She's going to have to return the favor.
Well, is there anything else that you feel that wasn't covered today that you were hoping would be covered?
Yeah, so do look for the public stops, which are on our trl.org /anywhere. It lists all the different,
Yes.
and you can see the different types of places we have the public stops. And you can request a stop if you have an idea for a great location. So
We've certainly done a lot in just over a year and a half, from 0 to 70 total stops. So that's really impressive. And I think, we look forward to seeing where this goes in the future. Thanks to the both of you for coming on. We hope to have you back on in a future episode.
Anytime.
yeah,
Thank you
definitely.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Timberland Library. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at trlpodcast@trl.org.
Original music is by our very own librarian and talented musician, Stefan, at the Elm Branch.
Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep the conversation going. Thank you for being a part of the TRL community.